Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. We're here at episode 66. June has come to a close. It's been a wild month for combat sports, and honestly, most particularly this past weekend has been insane. You had two huge pay-per-views: UFC 317, Ilia Topuria taking care of another legend early with a KO. He ran through Charles Oliveira even faster than he did Volker Max. Knocked him out in the first round. I mean, at this point, what can this guy not do? He is a problem. He is the UFC's biggest star, probably. I mean, there's so much stuff everyone's talking about. His comparisons to Conor McGregor and his rise. He's already a two-division champion. Everything he says he's going to do, he does. He celebrated the night before for the victory. He knew he was going to win. The confidence, honestly, the arrogance, but he's not. He's humble though. You know, he's not. Oh, you need to give me all this money. He's not shit talking. He's doing his thing. He's telling Charles Oliveira, "I'm sorry. I wish it didn't have to be you." And he was crying for him in the hotel room because he knew what he was gonna have to do to him. The guy is a legend. The guy's a monster. He's taken out three of the best fighters in the UFC over the past decade within the span of 1 year almost. I mean, unbelievable. He's already, people are talking about him as the GOAT. I don't want to jump that far ahead, but this has to be one of the best three fight runs we have ever seen in the sport. It's unbelievable. I mean, if people are saying he's number one pound for pound, I kind of don't want to argue with him. I mean, Islam Makhachev has not had, sure, he's beaten a lot of the best guys in the world and stuff, but I don't know. I feel like he hasn't gone on a run like that. And when you talk about Ilia versus Islam, both just seem so unbeatable to me. I still have Islam as number one in the pound for pound, and I think he has been for a while. But for a long time, there's been nobody that's come close. Ilia has come close now. Ilia is definitely number two. I think your top five guard probably got to be Islam, Ilia, Marab, Pantoja, and then as for five, probably DDP. Honestly, there's not another champion. Maybe Volk, and you do have Tom Aspinall there. Ankalaev is not in that top five. I would probably have to say it's between Volk and DDP. But I mean, dude, what a performance from Ilia Topuria. The guy is just insane, and I can't sing his praises enough. He is so dangerous in the cage. He's so it's unbelievable how much he just manifests, and I don't like using that word, but how much he just knows what's gonna happen. It's Mystic Mac. He's just like Conor McGregor, but without that, all the controversies, and again, it's early in his career, but without demanding all this money and smack talking everyone. He just does his thing. He finishes Charles Oliveira with ease. Nobody's ever done that, and then just walks off humbly, doesn't even really celebrate. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He's talking to the post-fight press conference saying, there's room for a third belt. He's saying that the UFC begged him, please do not move to 170 because if anybody's going to be a three-division champion, it is Ilia Topuria. Because he says he can move up in weight. If he gets up to 170, oh my God. He genuinely could be the first three-division champion of the UFC. It is just unbelievable the rise he's been on, and I think that a lot of this is him being the biggest star. I feel like we were saying kind of the same stuff about Poatan and Alex Pereira, but I also feel like when you look at the runs Pereira was having, for example, in 2024, yeah, he was beating the top guys in his weight class, but none of them were on this. None of those Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree, Yuri Prohaska, sure they're great, they're top 5, top 10 at light heavyweight right now. It's not the same thing. Pereira is a star because of his character. Ilia is a star because of what he's done and who he's beaten. Not just the performances and the knockouts, but who he's doing it against and how easily he's doing it. Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Charles Oliveira. Unbelievable. So he is now the lightweight champion, two-division champion. He's got a host of contenders to pick from. You got Paddy Pimblett, who gets in the cage after. Dana White says that he did not authorize that. But then in the press conference, it kind of seems like he didn't want to. He didn't say that because, I don't want, we don't want it to be Ilia versus Paddy next. It's more so I think that he talked about his family being in there. He didn't want a fight to break out while Ilia had his kids in there, which is a good reason for safety and such. He also, you have Arman Saruki in there who's been waiting for his title shot for a really long time. You have Justin Gaethje as well. So those are really the four men in the 155-pound division that are in this kind of circle right now. For me, I think Ilia and Paddy kind of sold themselves there. Do I think Paddy deserves the title shot right now? No, I do not. I think that in terms of the way that the system is supposed to work, it should be Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan next. However, this is also a money business, and people don't really want to see Ilia versus Arman as much as they want to see Ilia versus Paddy. I'm kind of one of those people. I love Paddy the Baddy. I love Ilia Topuria. Them two they have beef. It's real. It'd be a great fight. It'd be fun. Ilia vanquishes him, but he does it to all these guys. I'm fine if they did Ilia versus Paddy next. I'm fine if they did Ilia versus Arman next. I would just also have a lot of interest in seeing Justin Gaethje versus Arman Tsarukyan. Because I feel like even though Arman had earned that title shot, I feel like he hasn't done anything in a year and a half. And I feel like he's had to do something to re-earn that right. Dana White also says how Arman was the backup fighter and how he made weight and how in January he missed weight, and that was the reason. I don't know if he slipped up there or he did that intentionally because he just didn't believe Arman because we know he was mad. But Arman was talking about being ill or having like a back problem, I think, and that was why he couldn't fight. There's rumors because he missed weight. Dana White says he missed weight in January, and that's why the fight didn't happen. So that's interesting. But it seems like Arman's a little bit better in graces now that he's shown them that he can make the weight. So I'd be fine with that, whatever they do. I do kind of think it'd be Ilia versus Paddy next. Dricus du Plessis threw a wrench in this plan and said that apparently the co-main event for UFC 319, which is headlining against Khamzat Chimaev, who, by the way, just arrives in the U.S., is going to be Justin Gaethje versus Paddy the Baddy. And again, I'm totally fine with that. That fight is a war, and Ilia is saying he wants to come back in December. Do Ilia versus Arman in December, or Paddy versus Justin? That's 4 months away from the final card of the year. You can get the winner of that out for a third time in that year and have them fight the champ. But I'm really fine if they do Paddy versus Justin. I'm fine if it's Paddy versus Arman. Actually, I don't think that Justin deserves the title shot because he got, knocked out by Max. Then ever since then, all he's done is had a win over Rafael Fiziev, which was a close fight. I don't think that he's quite earned the next title shot as much as Paddy or Arman have. So we'll see what they end up doing with it. But the lightweight division is as hot as it's always hot. I don't want to say it's as hot as it ever has been, but it's always been hot. And yeah, it was unbelievable on Saturday night. We're going to go to the rest of the card in a minute, but I do want to jump over and talk about Jake Paul. So Jake Paul beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. by unanimous decision. It wasn't the best fight. It was not. I thought that Jake looked good. I thought that he, for the first 8 rounds of the fight, was in complete control, and it was more so less about how good Jake looked, because, again, I don't want to say, Jake's this world beater. He's not a world-level fighter, although we know that he is now set to be ranked, at least by the WBA, maybe the WBC or the WBO or IBF, whatever, but the WBA said that if he were to beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., they would implement him into their top 15. That seems like it's going to happen now. I also saw that he's top 10 in the U.S. on BoxRec, but those ratings don't make any sense. Anyways, Jake beats Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I thought that he had a lot of really good work in there. He had some nice uppercuts. His body work was very good. He was jabbing him well. Chavez just was not throwing at all. Like literally at all for the first 8 rounds. He was throwing less than 10 punches around, I'm sure. It was a really bad watch. And, his dad ringside was doing the whole meme again where he was putting his hand on his palm on his face and it was just like, man, what is he doing? And then the last 2 rounds, Chavez unloads on Jake Paul. And I don't want to say he hurt Jake Paul, but he was getting way more shots off on him. Was hitting him with big shots. It was finally in there, and he was doing the better work in that firefight. And I was like, where has this been for the last 30 minutes, dude? And it's clear what his game plan was. Okay, well, Jake's a big guy. He's young. He's not as experienced. He hasn't been the distance as many times as I have, this long distance. I want to see his body tank. I want to see his gas tank. Let's let him get to the end. Let's let him punch himself out. I'm not going to throw much, and then I'm going to unload on him once he gets tired. That's clear what the game plan was. But he started it way too late. So many guys do this. And, when you're doing this, you want them to punch themselves out for the first 3, maybe 4 rounds, but then you want to get going, You don't want to wait until round 9 to start. Because that's just looking for a knockout. And you don't want to bet on the knockout when Jake Paul has never even been knocked down before. Like, that was just such a terrible game plan. And it showed. And, he's doing it. And he's like, crap. I bet Julio has so many regrets right now about that fight. Because looking at it, he could have been way more competitive in the fight. He hadn't won a round for me until round 9. I had the final scorecard at 98-92. He did nothing the whole fight until the last 6 minutes. And he looked good in the last 6 minutes. It was just really upsetting. I'm seeing there's a whole amount of discourse on Twitter and stuff about Jake rigging the fights and stuff, and that's just stupid. You are an idiot if you're gonna sit here and say, oh, Jake Paul rigs his fight. Listen, if you're not a fan of Jake Paul, fair play. I do not blame you. If you don't want to watch his fights, I don't blame you. If you want to say that he cherry picks opponents that are past their prime, older than him, smaller than him, you are right. He does not pick fair fights. Absolutely. But he's not cheating. He's not faking them. And it frustrates me because I feel like people have to come up with ways to, try and discredit it. Like, look, he beat the guy that was in front of him. If you don't think that guy should have been fighting him and you don't think that was a fair fight, say that. But don't, or not fair fight, but, not a fair fight in terms of, like the setup of it. But don't say that Jake paid him off. That's just stupid. Like, you really are, like you're just, like, low intellect if you're saying that kind of stuff. And you're just hating. You are. I don't know. And I was seeing a lot of people that on Twitter that I know do not like Jake Paul. They don't like watching his fights. But they're saying, like, come on, let's not be stupid here. And also, it's not bad for boxing. They had a huge crowd on their Saturday. And look at the undercard. It was a fantastic night of boxing. It was incredible. And we're going to run through all of it. But we're just going to hop back and forth between UFC and Jake Paul cards and then the rest of the stuff. There was so much this weekend. I got to go quicker. Deontay Wilder winning as well. Christian and Billy. Oh, my goodness. But anyways, Jake Paul's next fight. I don't want to see him against a world champion yet. I would not be surprised if they did that. I think it'd be hard to. I wouldn't be mad just because he'd be like, all right, let's see what you're made of, kid. But he's not going to win a world title. I think Tommy Fury is the fight that everyone's been talking about wanting. And I'm one of those people. I'm like, look, I think that he beats Tommy Fury now. I do kind of believe that just because of what we've seen from both of them since that first fight. But I just don't think that Tommy Fury is going to fight him. I don't know why. I think that Tommy Fury feels like he is the A side in that fight. And like he probably should be because he does have a win over Jake Paul. But Jake Paul is so much bigger of a star and has progressed so much since that fight that it's hard to say, oh yeah, Tommy Fury is the guy and Jake Paul is going to take less money and Jake Paul or Tommy Fury deserves $20 million for that fight. Like, let's not be silly. And I think Tommy Fury's just being stubborn in negotiations like that. When I think he should just take the fight because as we've seen, he has two options, and that's a KSI rematch and a Jake Paul rematch. That's it. That's your career, man. So take the bigger one. Take the Jake Paul rematch. But I'm fine with that. The AJ and Tank and Canelo talks are all fun and games, but it's just if he fights Anthony Joshua or Gervonta Davis, I think that's both ridiculous and doesn't make any sense. If he fights Canelo, I probably wouldn't be as mad just because that is closer to his size. And Canelo's getting to the point in his career where he just wants the big money fights. So I really wouldn't be mad if that was like Canelo's last fight if he fought Jake Paul. But as far as Tank and Anthony Joshua, I just don't think either of those fights make sense at all. And it's crazy to have them be call-outs in the same sentence. But he faced off with Zurdo afterwards. Zurdo had an interesting win where Dorticos. He had a really slow start against Dorticos, and then Dorticos, kind of slowed down later in the fight. I thought he had a great start. He was throwing way more than Zurdo and was hitting him with the bigger shots for about the first 4 rounds maybe, and then Zurdo started to slowly get his stuff together and dominated the rest of the fight. I had the final scorecard, I want to say 117-110. Dorticos did lose a point, I believe, in like the 10th or 11th round. Not the it was an odd performance. I think that Dorticos just kind of showed his age, later on in the fight. But looked decent in the start, I thought. I really did. And I didn't think that this was the best Zurdo we've seen. I thought that he looked a lot better against Chris Smith. And he had a really slow start. And I was like, man, Dorticos about to throw a huge, derailing of this fight between Zurdo and Jai Patai, which does need to be next. We can talk about Zurdo versus Jake Paul and whatever, but it does need to be Zurdo versus Jai. That is the fight for the division. I don't care. It's what everyone needs to see. It's what we all want to see. Let's make that fight happen next. Over on to UFC, Alexander Pantoja continues to just be an absolute dominant champion. He now has like the most wins, most finishes, most submissions in UFC flyweight history, which is incredible. He is a unit. He is so dominant. And he dealt with Kai Kara-France with ease in there. For the entirety of the fight, he was in first gear and submitted him in the third. And you could just see the determination on Kai's face. He did not want to give up in there. And but I mean, it is what it is. I thought Pantoja looked insane. And the fight before that, we figured out the who his next opponent's gonna be, and that is Joshua Van. What a story! That fight between him and Brandon Royval, everyone's talking about that's the UFC fight of the year so far, probably. It was incredible. It was incredible. They were both just throwing nonstop, and it was a phenomenal fight. Van did deserve the decision. I had him winning 29-28, as I believe all the judges did. I thought Royval had a good second round, I think it was, but Van definitely got the first and definitely got the third. It was really fun. I mean, looking at just what Van's done, 1 year ago he was coming off a KO loss. In the past year, I think he's had a KO loss, or no, he had one. I don't know, but he's had 5 fights in the last year, all wins since that loss. And I mean, a month ago he was not ranked. He wasn't ranked, and now he's Now he's going to get the next title shot. He's now going to be number one. Like, unbelievably, is that win against Bruno Silva, gets ranked, Manel Kopp gets injured, out of the Brandon Royval fight, Van steps in on like 2 weeks' notice and beats the number one contender. Unbelievable. What a story. He could be the youngest UFC champion, I think. I think he's 22. John Jones holds that record at 23. So we'll see if he can break it. I may be wrong in that. He may already be 23, maybe older than John Jones. But I think that him and Pantoja is a fight that's going to happen later this year, and it'll be really fun. I still think Pantoja wins it, but Van is a fresh face for Pantoja to fight because he's fought everyone else in the division, so that's nice, and he'll definitely bring the fight. He had a tremendous performance on Saturday night. Speaking of good performances, Peyton Talbot really came back from his loss against Barcelos, learned, how to defend takedowns, and beat Felipe Lima when he was actually an underdog. The UFC said, look, man, you didn't, we thought you were going to be this new thing. You took a loss, whatever. We don't want to give you a layup, like we want to see what you're really made of and if you belong here. And he said, okay, I'm going to show you what I belong of, that I belong here, what I'm made of. And he took care of business. It was competitive with Felipe Lima. I would have liked to see more offense from Talbot. It was all defense really until the third round, but he was just doing such a good job at, and he's just, the way he moved was so pleasing to watch, honestly, because he just refused to get put into a bad position and just lay there. Every time Lima would try to take him down, he'd stay up, and if he get taken down, he'd only be down there for a second and maneuver his way out of it. Really, really good wrestling, I thought. And, this was really just to show, this was honestly a showcase for him. To show, like, look, all right, give me another Brazilian wrestler. He's not going to do anything to me. And it was really impressive, I thought. So that was good. He's still one of the top UFC prospects, I think. I think he's gotten back on track with that. And I just hope he's more active. He only fights like once every 6 months when he could be a big star for the UFC. Beneil Dariush took care of Renato Moicano in their fight that was meant to happen in January. Moicano had a great start, but then Dariush kind of just dominated him for the rest of the fight with the wrestling. It was a good performance there. He's top 10 in the lightweight division. RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez had a UFC KO of the year most likely against Jack Hermanson. It was brutal. He knocked him out standing up. Hermanson goes down, and then RoboCop goes and hammer fists him one more time, which was just completely unnecessary. I know that the ref hadn't stepped in yet, and that's what you're supposed to do, and he did wait for a second, but the fight's over. He's not getting up from that. He's laid out. His eyes are staring at the ceiling. He doesn't know where he is. Don't hit him again. Don't give him that extra CTE. Hermanson had to be taken out of the hospital. It was brutal. I don't think it was necessary to get that second punch in, but big win for RoboCop coming off his loss to Jared Cannonier, and it was very impressive. He's a huge middleweight. Jose Miguel Delgado also had a crazy first-round finish against Haider Amil. Tracy Cortez with the unanimous decision win over Vivian Araújo. Very, very dominant. It was our first win in almost 2 years, so it was good to see. Terrence McKinney had a very fast submission. In the first round, again, Jacoby Smith had a really dominant performance. I thought he finished Nico Price in the second round. And then Jonata Denise beat Alvin Hines in a unanimous decision to start off the card. It was a really solid card, I thought. Really, really fun. A lot of great fights. Only 11 fights in total, so not the biggest in terms of a number of fights, but it was a great card with a lot of great names and great finishes and stuff on there. Hopefully the next review is also, ends up delivering, but looking at it right now, that main card is really looking pretty bad. I think there's like 5 or so unranked fighters on the main card, which is really not great. But yeah, we'll see. There's just some really, really odd choices to go on that main card. But anyways, that's UFC 317. One thing I didn't talk about, as for what's next for Charles Oliveira, it's hard to say. I saw somebody post a fight that I saw somebody say you should fight Dan Hooker next. I kind of like that because Charles Oliveira, I still think you can't push him past top 5, top 6 lightweights right now. So I think Dan Hooker's a good fight for him. As for the Paul Chavez card, also on there we had Raul Curiel stopping Victor Rodriguez in the 4th round. I actually thought that Rodriguez looked pretty solid. The first 3 rounds he was competitive. I had him winning the 1st and the 3rd. Maybe I'm crazy for that, but I thought that he was doing really well. And then 4th round, Curiel just hit him to the body and figured him out. I was like, okay, this is what it's gonna be, and he stopped him after that, and that was great. Raul Curiel is one of my favorite fighters. I think that he's so much fun to watch. His fight with Alexis Rocha was incredible. They should have done a rematch. Apparently, Curiel was that timing wasn't good for him. With he had some injury or something, and then Rocha got injured. So it's just this fight just never happened. But hopefully they can get that going again. He did win a WBA eliminator. I know that Shakram Giasov is still mandatory for that belt, so it should be him versus Rolly next. But now Roy Curiel has entered the equation. But I hope to see him get another title shot pretty soon. Or not another, but another big fight, and hopefully he gets that title shot and enters the picture. This is what we really need to talk about. Floyd Schofield. My goodness, what a performance. He stole the show. Absolutely. In terms of boxing, this weekend, he stole the show. He had so much hate from the Shakur situation, and I was kind of one of them. I was saying this is ridiculous, talking about getting poisoned. Obviously he's sick, but people calling it bullshit. I didn't think it was BS, but he's saying all this stuff, giving him so much hate. He was in a bad spot. He said he wanted to quit boxing. And then he's going into still the toughest fight of his career. Tevin Farmer coming off 3 losses, but 3 really strong losses. The Raymond Murataya fight, he could have gotten the decision in. The first William Zepeda fight, he could have gotten the decision in. The second William Zepeda fight, he didn't win that one, but it was competitive, especially with William Zepeda just being so aggressive the whole fight, and Farmer seemingly tired after 2 rounds, and he stuck it out for the all 12 rounds and was winning rounds. It was unbelievable. He's been on a really good run, showing he still got it, and Schofield comes in here and just takes all of the anger he's had for the past 6 months and just lets it out on Farmer. Stops him in 1 round. It was unbelievable. Looking at what Zepeda and Murataya, 2 power punchers. Zepeda throws so many punches, nobody gets out of the ring with them. And seeing how easily Schofield ran through him, 3 knockdowns, unbelievable performance of the night. It was unbelievable. And now people are saying, all right, give him Tank Davis, give him the winner of Shakur versus Zepeda. He's ready for it now. I wasn't saying that when he got the Shakur fight. I said he's not ready yet. Now he's ready. He is ready. Obviously, guys like Abdullah Mason, which I'm sure everyone would like him to fight. Mason's actually going to become a world champion soon if he beats Sam Noakes. So, all the stars are aligning for this new generation of lightweights to come into the fold, and Schofield's one of them. Tremendous performance from him. It was incredible. You had Julian Rodriguez beating Avius Griffin in a fight that was both boring and exciting. Rodriguez, was just doing better work all night, and Griffin looked a little bit too green for that kind of fight. It was competitive, but it was mostly Rodriguez's way. He got dropped. I think it was the 7th round, maybe 8th. And then in the 10th round, Rodriguez just gets it all together. He starts to hurt Griffin, and he knocks him down big time on the ropes, and Griffin does not make the count with 30 seconds left. Great performance from Rodriguez. He was already winning, but it was close, and just to say, no, I need the win, was very, very impressive to me. This is Avius Griffin's MVP debut, so they definitely wanted him to get at least a win in there and look hopefully really good, and that didn't happen. But yeah, good for Rodriguez. Rodriguez is saying that he is signed with TKO and Dana White, or not signed, but he's looking to be signed. He's in conversations with them, which is insane. I didn't know they were already getting people together, and and it shows okay, if they're getting somebody like Julian Rodriguez, who's not this big star and stuff, but he was decent in the welterweight division. They're putting together a lot of fighters to have a huge roster like the UFC, to have 1,000 or whatever fighters, hundreds of fighters, all just there and ready to fight. Not just the big names, which I like to see. I like to see that they're actively working behind the scenes to get that stuff done. Also on the card, the return of Holly Holm. She looked phenomenal. I thought Yolanda Vega was going to win the fight. Yeah, I did, because Vega's this undefeated Mexican. She's younger. Holly Holm is 43. I thought Vega's also been signed by MVP, which means that they believe in her. And I thought she's really going to upset the apple cart, and she didn't. Holly Holm looked she did not look any bit of 43. She looked like she still had all the challenge, all the skill and the poise and the boxing technicality and just everything. She just moved so well and completely outboxed and honestly kind of beat up Vega for all 10 rounds and was very humble, and she just looked really great to me. Um, Great performance, and it's not going to be hard for her to get another title shot. She's in the lightweight division, which doesn't have any huge stars there, but they have Stephanie Hahn, who signed with MVP. That fight can happen with her name value, and now that she's back in boxing, she could fight for a world title in her next fight. It's crazy. Joel Iriarte went the distance for the first time. Good learning fight against Kevin Johnson. First time he's lost a round probably in that 8th round, but it was a solid performance nonetheless. Alexander Gaethje also went the distance. Joshua Edwards, first round knockout. He's a very, very fun heavyweight prospect. Scrappy Ramirez had an 8-round decision, looked all right. Rene Alvarado upset Victor Morales Jr. I'd always thought Morales had never been too impressive to me. And, Alvarado's his former world title challenger with the deceiving record. He's like 34-16. And he came in there, brought the fight to Morales immediately. Said, we're going to make this a war because Morales does not have a ton of knockouts. He's not somebody who goes into wars. And Alvarado made it a war, and he beat him up for the whole fight. I had him winning 98-92. I thought it was an incredible performance from Alvarado. He still got it after, like a decade or so in these kind of fights and all these wars, and fantastic work from him. It was a really, really fun night of boxing. Moving on from there, I'm going to see if there's any other big notes from that event. Tevin Farmer apparently did miss weight, but I think that he was able to come in and make weight again in the second go around. But that was a story that was going on Friday. But his weight posted on Saturday was 135, so I guess he made it. Something about the tickets. This was a little bit upsetting to me from Ring Magazine because I feel like sometimes with Turkey Hunting Ring Magazine, they're not as ethical as they should be, and they're not as non-biased as they should be. Ring Magazine posted during the event, right when it was like at its peak, when it was like after the main event was ending. They weren't posting much about promotion for this event at all, and then they post that the tickets were as low as $10 and were reduced 70%. Reduced 70%. Toward during the event. After it was announced that this was the highest boxing gate for the Anaheim Center, or the Honda Center in Anaheim in its history, when they've had 60 events there. And I just thought that was so ridiculous because so many events flop in boxing, so many do. This one was not a flop. And then Ring Magazine is coming on here just trying to sell a story and say, oh, look, Jake Paul can't do it because Jake Paul and Turkey don't get along. And I just thought that was so petty and unnecessary. And then the Nikisa comes in and he says that it's not accurate, that no tickets are selling for $10 and the average ticket was like $159. And then people are responding, with the Ring Magazine 3, their upcoming card in New York City, how that's not selling any tickets. It was just ridiculous that they would go out and post something like that. I thought stick to posting and promoting boxing, not crapping on another promotion's event. That's not what the news is for. Let Turkey do that. Let Zuffa Boxing do that. Let Riyadh Season do that. But do not let the Ring Magazine, which is meant to be a news source, be posting that kind of stuff. Because even if it's even if it's like news and stuff, you don't post that about other events. You're doing that in a way, posting it at a time and in a manner to try and defame boxing. And I just thought it was upsetting. And I don't know. People are saying that Jake Paul is bad for boxing. Say what you will about his fights, but in terms of what he does for the sport, or in terms of what MVP does for the sport, they're becoming a major player. They're putting on great events, great fights, elevating women's boxing, paying the fighters good money. They're absolutely great for the sport. So I just think that we need to move on from that. Moving on to other things, let's talk about the other fights we had this weekend. Deontay Wilder is back, is he? No. He had a 7th-round stoppage over Tyrell Herndon, so his first win since 2022. I thought that he looked okay. Herndon looked horrible. Absolute tin can. Wilder beat him up. Did what he had to do. I'm glad that he got the stoppage because he really needed a big win in this fight, and he was able to get that. As for what's next, I'm not really sure. I don't even really want to see him get into a fight with another big dog just because I don't want to see what's going to happen to him. Honestly, if Jake Paul is wanting to do all these big-name fights, do Jake Paul, Deontay Wilder. They're around the same size in terms of weighing naturally right now between like 215, 230. I think that could be a lot of fun. I think that's a fight I would maybe even favor Jake Paul, but definitely would certainly be his toughest fight because Deontay Wilder, sure, he's past his prime, but he's not too far past his prime that he could still knock you out. especially somebody like Jake Paul. Why not? I would love it if they did that fight, but we'll see if they do. But yeah, Deontay Wilder is back in the win column. Part of me would like to see him just end the career now. Okay, now that I've gotten a win, I can retire. I don't think he's going to do that, but we'll just see where he goes from here and who that next fight's going to be against. I'm curious if it's going to be anybody with a name or not. He was talking about South Korea later this year, which is just so random. I doubt that happens, but who knows, man? Who knows? Christian and Billy had his first round knockout against Maciej Szuleski to win the WBC interim super middleweight title. So he is now one of the mandatory challengers to face Canelo Alvarez. Ran through Szuleski exactly what he needed to. I would like to see him belly back out soon because it had been a while before this fight since he was last out. I didn't really like Szuleski as the opponent. I knew this was and Billy was gonna win dominantly. I didn't think it was gonna be that quick, but it was. It was a really, really good knockout. He hit him with the body shot and then an uppercut. Very, very solid stuff. Another one of those fighters that's always fun to watch. And yeah, I'm curious who they set him up with next. There's rumors Turki Al-Sheikh says he wants to make that fight with him and Lester Martinez, who's a fight coming up on July 12th. So that could be an interesting one. And you could also get a Billy in the mix with like Pacheco or someone of that matter. Let's just see who they set up for him. He also had Stephen Butler got a very quick win on that card. It was a very fun fight he was in. Arslanbek Makhmudov got a first-round knockout against an undefeated opponent. So I guess Makhmudov, we can keep him in these kind of fights where he's just, in with other heavyweights and we just see him get quick knockouts, but he's never going to be a world champion. He's never going to be successful against the big dogs. He fought Ajit Caballel and he fought Guido Vianello and he got beaten comprehensively by both of them. So I think that we know what level he's at, but I'm fine with watching him at this level. John Arobio had a fantastic knockout. Wilkins Matthew had a good big stoppage. Christopher Guerrero was in a really solid fight. He was losing, I thought, going into the final round, and then he got a stoppage with like 1 minute left. So that was really great to see. I liked that killer instinct. Leila Boudoin stopped Elham Makhalid, who's a former world title challenger, and just 6 rounds. She looked really great. Luis Santana had a 5th round stoppage, and then Wyatt Sanford was the only fighter on that card to go the distance. Eye of the Tiger is a really, really awesome stable. They really do. And yeah, they had some great fights on Friday night. Also on Friday night, we had the PFL World Tournament 7 card. So this was the heavyweights, light heavyweights, and middleweights. As far as the middleweight division is concerned, Fabian Edwards beat Josh Silveira in a really good performance, especially in the later half of that fight. And his next opponent is going to be Dalton Rasta, who had a great win over Aaron Jeffrey. That should be a really, really solid fight. Light heavyweights, it's going to be Sullivan Cauley versus Antonio Carlos Jr. Both fights there I thought were very close. I mean, I think that Carlos or Powell could have gotten the decision, the same thing that Davis or Cauley could have gotten the decision. I could have seen any 4 of these guys moving forward, but it's going to be Cauley versus Carlos next, which is fine with me. That's your light heavyweight championship. And then it's going to be Oleg Popov versus Alexander Romanov. Popov had a very dominant win over Rodrigo Nascimento, and then Romanov was winning the fight against Moldavsky in the first round, and then Moldavsky hits him so low below the belt, right in the moneymakers, and he had to be taken out on a stretcher from getting hit in the balls. It was crazy. And so, it's no contest. The official result of that fight is a no contest, but the judges selected Romanov to move forward in the tournament as, somebody, even though Moldavsky was an accident, Moldavsky didn't lose the fight, somebody needs to be able to move on and you're like, well, you were the one that threw the foul, so we're not going to take him out because of injury unless he's not able to or something. So I think that it will be Romanov. That's who's moving forward next. If Romanov is unable to compete, if this really has some long-term effects on him and he won't be able to come back and recover in 2 months' time, then I think that Moldavsky should be given a fair chance and should be given that fight. But I like the decision to have Romanov move forward. Biagio Ali Walsh, was looking good in the first round of his fight, and then he got finished. The other Ali Walsh brother, after Nico gets beaten twice, Ali Walsh gets submitted for the first time as a professional. First loss, I think. Really, really solid stuff from Ronnie Gibbs. Another upset. Rafael Xavier had a first-round finish over Carl Albrechtson to be the ultimate in the 205 tournament, and then you had Sergio Pettis beating Rafion Stotts in the on the main card as well. So it was a solid night from the PFL, I thought. Some bangers, some stinkers, but a lot of bangers, and yeah, it was a good night overall. And yeah, PFL. Now we have all the championships set for August. So That should be fun when we finally get to see the ends of these tournaments. He also had BKFC 77. Connor Tierney beat Danny Christie in a phenomenal fight. Fourth round finish for him. I was back and forth, but Tierney was doing this better work. Other than that, Chaz Wasserman won in the co-main event. You had a lot of other fights on there, but I really don't remember much. A lot of boxing people were talking about Frankie Gavin being beaten, former British champion. I think they said former world title challenger against Kell Brook. He got finished by Jack Dugdale in under a minute, so that was pretty bad. A lot of decent finishes. I remember Jelly Zager sticking out to me as somebody that impressed me a lot. Um, yeah, it was a really fun night. I thought in Birmingham it was a big arena, but not a ton of other big names on that card. I like the guy who won the first fight, Ginge from Chardin. I think that's funny that he's got his own name, and that's like they didn't even talk about his actual name. They just called him Ginge from Chardin, which is pretty funny. Um, we also had Shakan Pitters versus Bradley Rea. People were talking about this as like a fight of the year contender, at least in Britain, and I'm like, okay, slow down. I don't think that it was that. I watched it. I didn't think it was that great. It was all in the phone booth, but it wasn't good phone booth boxing. They were hugging the whole time and just punching each other in the body. It was okay, but it wasn't like fight of the year for me. Brad Rea, I did think deserved the decision. I thought it was a solid fight. I had Rhea winning that one 115-113, so very close, but he deserved it. Greatest Krause got a second round stoppage after having a fun walkout with his daughter, as he usually does. He's a really solid prospect they've got. Sean McComan, a 6-round decision win. Looked decent, but hopefully he's in another decent fight because a lot of people think he beat Barboza, and he's been out of the ring for 14 months and fought a journeyman over 6 rounds. So hopefully GBM can get him going. I feel like GBM has so many other fighters, decent, good fighters, have their fights canceled or they put them in meaningless fights like this, so they need to get their stuff straight. And then you also had Adam Coleridge upsetting Adrian King. That was pretty crazy. I thought that was, you always love to see a heavyweight prospect or any prospect get beaten, and I don't want to say that with like ill intent, but it is just great to see an upset. And I saw that Adrian King's team talking about how he's the second best heavyweight in the country behind Moses Atama, and 5 years time it'll be a 50-50 fight, and then he gets beaten the next day, so it's kind of funny. Gemma Richardson started off the card and had a nice stoppage. She was a fun fighter to watch, so it was an okay card from them. I didn't catch the prelims, but I don't know if I missed very much. But yeah, it was a decent show. Also, some other news we're gonna head into now. Oh, I forgot about this. Michael Cieslak. I didn't see the fight, but apparently he stopped Jean Pascal in 4 rounds, and it was very one-sided, and he looked really good. Not surprised. Cieslak is a very skilled operator. He's been inching towards that world title shot, and he's going to get it. He's now the WBC interim cruiserweight champion, so he's mandatory along with Noel Mikhailian for that belt against Badu Jack, who may be fighting Jake Paul next for all we know. I don't really know what's going on there, but some other huge news. There's so much stuff to happen. We're 8 minutes into the episode. Jeez. We even talked about Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn 2 is announced September 20th. Same stipulations as the first fight, which is only fair. Yes, Eubank struggled to make the weight, and Conor was not big enough to fight him. But this is the best. This is the best. Limitations for both. But we're gonna get the rematch September 20th. Likely at Tottenham Hotspur, I think, but it's also possible they could do Wembley. It'll definitely be another stadium. It's going to be in London. They said that, so we're going to get either one of those 2 locations. Apparently Eddie Hearn was saying how Eubank is not actually signed to anyone, how he just has a partnership with Boxer. But then Boxer says no, he is signed with us, so I don't really know what's going on there, but I don't think it matters. But this is a huge fight. I'm glad they're doing the rematch because it was the fight of the year. The first time around, it totally was, and it was the biggest event and build-up of the year, I think, and it paid off to it. So I'm more than happy to do it this time, second time around. Hopefully, seniors involved the whole way through this time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be crazy. And yeah, September 20th, the countdown starts now. That's not the only announcement Turkey made on Sunday. He also confirmed that Devin Haney will challenge Brian Norman Jr. for the WBO welterweight title in November in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I'm very happy with this fight. I am. As an Atlanta native, I'm not happy because I know everyone is saying that. They think Norman's going to beat Haney. Everyone has microwave memories. Devin Haney is still one of the best fighters in the world. Like, sure, yeah, he looked bad against Ryan Garcia. And Ryan Garcia was on PEDs, and he looked terrible against Jose Ramirez. And Norman's coming off the KO of the year, but I'm 1,000% picking Devin Haney to win this fight. He's never lost a fight. He'll fight anyone, and he's never lost. Even though, yeah, he lost against Ryan Garcia, but that got taken away. He's he's going to show up, and Brian Norman Jr. 1 year ago was about to get stopped by Janelson Bocachica in 2 rounds, but nobody remembers that. But he beats Derek Cuevas, and now he's this world beater. And then I'm being pessimistic, I know, and I do like Brian Norman Jr. I think he's a really fun fighter to watch. I just don't think that he's on the level of Devin Haney. I would have liked to have seen him fight someone like Rohan Polanco, who's another in-house fight the Top Rank would likely make. Would be a fun fight. They could do that in Atlanta. I wanted him to come in Atlanta, defend in Atlanta before he lost the title, because I do think he loses his title in this fight. But it's a great fight for boxing. Norman's as hot as he ever has been. Devin Haney is looking for another world title shot after Ryan Garcia fight's not going to happen. Teofimo Lopez fight's not going to happen. So let's do it. Let's do Haney versus Norman in November. I would like it to be in the United States somewhere. I don't think it should be in Riyadh, but it is what it is. But I'm just happy we're getting the fight, and it's gonna be a good one. Other than those announcements, we got more news. Ryan Garcia was going on a rant on Saturday night during the Golden Boy X MVP event, tweeting "F Golden Boy," talking smack about Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya posted a private text message Ryan sent him, just kind of saying like screw you, you suck, whatever, just like cussing him out, just saying all this stuff. Clearly he's having another episode, after being, seeming to be on the right path since he lost to Rolly. It looks like he's going to go back off the rails again, which is unfortunate to see, but Oscar De La Hoya should not have texted him that. If he really cared, he wouldn't have done that. He posted to try and, look, like this guy's an asshole. Look, I know what's going on, but now you look like the asshole because you're taking somebody who's texting you something who's obviously not in a good state of mind and showing it to the world, something private. You should not be doing that. Saying he needs help, you're not giving him the help he needs. You're making it worse for him. So I was really, upset when I saw that he posted that. I thought that was ridiculous, but I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if he's on drugs or alcohol, or if he's got some deeper issues and it's just the losses affected him, but he really seemed like he was on a good path before Times Square, and hopefully somebody around him can help him get back on track like he was, because it sucks to see. We had another press conference for Canelo versus Crawford. Some more smack talk there, which was fun. I liked seeing them actually get some stuff going. It was good. This was after the UFC weigh-in, so that was really fun. The whole crowd was there. They were asking questions. It was a lot of fun. John Anik and Mark Kriegel are apparently both going to be on the broadcast team, so I am a big fan of John Anik. So we're going to get a UFC X Boxing broadcast team. Max Kellerman on there as well. Mark Kriegel apparently is maybe a free agent. With Top Rank leaving ESPN, we'll see. But that should be a good squad there. John Jones apparently has been retired since November, is what he says. That he had already decided after Stipe Miocic he was done, but the UFC was telling him not to say that and was trying to get him to fight again, but he'd already made up his mind. And that's really sucks to see because he's put Tom Aspinall through the ringer for 8 months in that time. We've just been waiting for that fight to happen when he was never intending to make it happen. It's just annoying, but it is what it is. We're hearing that Imam Katayev has been having visa issues and a backup opponent is being looked at for David Morrell just in case he won't be able to make it to the fight. It's not canceled, and that Katayev may have figured it out by now, but there has been some worry that he wouldn't be able to make it to New York City for the fight to face Morrell, and hopefully they can get that done because that is a great fight at 175 pounds. Excuse me. We also had the announcement of OTX 15, headlined by Elijah Pierce versus Michael Das Marinas. I think these are both ranked by the WBA. It's Pierce's first fight at 126 pounds. So, looking forward to that. It's going to be in Atlanta. I'm going to try and go to that one. O'Shea Jones versus Elia Carenza for the IBF and IBO Super Welterweight titles. Haven Brady Jr. versus Michael Harris. That's a good fight. So you got a good three, triple header there. You also got guys like Nathan Lugo on the undercard. So it should be a good one. Matchroom is teasing they're going to be doing a rebrand or something. They're posting all their logos from over the years and saying that, there's something new, like a new era coming July 1st. So tomorrow we're going to see what that is. I'm guessing it's some kind of new logo, and that's pretty much it. But it is interesting. I was watching the BKFC card, and I noticed that they, were looking at their schedule, and they weren't talking about the card they have on July 18th in Australia, and it's not on their schedule anymore. Ben Rothwell was supposed to have a fight. It looks like it's been canceled. I did see a Rothwell faced off with Arlovsky last week in Texas, and I thought that was interesting. But I guess that they're no longer doing this event in Australia, which sucks to see because I was looking forward to that and seeing them expand. But I'm sure it'll happen eventually. I just want to know the reason why it didn't happen. Golden Boy have signed Amari Jones, who's a really good prospect out of California. I know that he was with Devin Haney for a while. I don't know if he's still associated with him, but good to see Golden Boy picking up another top fighter and prospect. This is not Omari Jones. This is Amari Jones. Yeah. MVP apparently have also signed Ebony Bridges. I don't know if that was already announced. It may have been, but I just saw somebody on Twitter talking about it, and that's a good signing. I don't know how much Ebony Bridges has left to give boxing. I thought she was kind of retired, but apparently she's still fighting with MVP. PFL has announced that September 26th they'll be in Nantes in France. They're going to be headlining with Lazy King, who's a big star over there. So that'll be the next installment of PFL Europe. They've got a card in Brussels, Belgium, this upcoming Saturday. That'll be the third event of the year for PFL Europe. September 26th looks like it'll be the next semifinals, I guess, for their two tournaments, and then the finals will be in December. And then lastly, Turki Al-Sheikh has called for Mikey Talon to be on the Canelo Crawford undercard, who's a British prospect who just had a finish over the weekend I saw. It's interesting. I remember he made his debut like a year and a half ago on the Jonas Mayer undercard. I don't know if that was a debut, but I think it was. And I thought he looked decent, but I don't remember seeing him on any card since then. I guess he's not signed with any big promoter. Maybe it had one other show with Ben Shalom he was on, but I'm not sure. But hey, Turki says he wants him on the card. He put out a little video saying that he'd like to be on it. That's what they said for young fighters to do. So, good for him. Let's see if he can get on. I'm curious how many prospects they're going to throw in there. It wouldn't surprise me because there was reports about them putting all these prospects or doing the fight during the day. It wouldn't surprise me if Turki's saying I want the young fighters on it. If he's gonna throw a ton of prospects like all day, just have all these short fights. He's gonna have like 10 prospects fight, and then they'll get to the main card. It wouldn't surprise me, but. That's all I've got for today's episode. I know it was a long one, but it was a good one. There was a lot of stuff to talk about. It was a huge weekend. And we've this next weekend, not a lot going on. Albert Batargaziev is fighting Jazza Dickens on Wednesday. I probably won't do another episode before then. So my thoughts on that fight, I think Batargaziev's going to win. I think he's a really solid guy at WBA and could get upped to the full world champion with Lamont Roach going to rematch Tank Davis soon, but I doubt the WBA will actually enforce that and make him the full champion. But it's an interesting fight. It's one that Batargaziev will definitely win, though, I think. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed. I'll have another episode on probably Thursday, maybe, talking about that event, talking about the two PFL cards this weekend, one in Riyadh, one in Brussels, as well as Jack Catterall, Harlem Eubank coming up this weekend, which should be fun. But thank you for listening, and peace out.